Earth Commander Bobby Taylor stood shackled before the Tarian High Council as he confessed to masterminding a systematic campaign of terror against their race, revealing atrocities beyond what the horrified aliens even accused him of. The imposing chamber on the Tarian capital world was packed with dignitaries from across the galaxy, all fixed on the grizzled human who had been the scourge of their civilizations. Sci-Fi, the Tarian leader, regarded Bobby coldly as he rattled off a litany of charges: slaughtered civilians, raised colonies, unleashing banned weapons. The evidence was damning. Bobby, his face stony, listened to the accusations in silence. Then he spoke, his gravelly voice echoing through the grand hall, but not to defend himself, to confess to war crimes even more sinister than what he stood trial for. Every atrocity I ordered, every life I took, it was all part of Earth's plan, a systematic campaign of terror against your worlds, more cruel and depraved than you realize, Bobby declared. He held up data rods containing encrypted transmissions, secret orders from Earth Military High Command, proof of the unthinkable depths of human brutality. Stunned silence gripped the chamber as the implications sunk in. The war with Earth was not what it seemed. Humanity's cruelty ran far deeper than the Ktarians ever imagined. If this was true, the fragile interstellar alliance forged in the aftermath of the human conflict was at risk of unraveling completely. Shouting erupted from the alien representatives, calls for immediate retaliation against Earth. Through it all, Bobby sat calmly, a slight smile on his weathered face, as if savoring the chaos he'd unleashed. His confession had changed everything. The trial would now decide the fate not only of Bobby Taylor, but of Earth itself and its future among the stars. But what did this human killer, the most reviled man in the galaxy, truly want? Answering that question may determine the survival of worlds. In the days following Bobby Taylor's explosive confession, the Tarian High Council worked tirelessly to investigate the evidence he had provided. Sci-Fi took charge of the inquiry personally, poring over encrypted transmissions and classified orders for hours on end. He barely slept, driven by a burning need to uncover the truth about Earth's war crimes. As the council members sifted through the data, a disturbing picture began to emerge. Intercepted communications between Earth's military leaders revealed a callous disregard for Tarian lives. Generals casually discussed the use of banned chemical weapons and the targeting of civilian populations. They spoke of breaking the Ktarians' will to fight through any means necessary. Sci-Fi felt a cold fury building inside him as he read the damning messages. He had always known that the humans were ruthless adversaries, but this went beyond the brutal realities of war. This was systematic, premeditated cruelty on a scale that defied comprehension. When the council reconvened, Sci-Fi laid out the evidence before them. He projected the intercepted communications onto the chamber's massive screens, highlighting the most egregious passages. The other council members sat in stunned silence as they absorbed the magnitude of Earth's crimes. "These atrocities cannot go unanswered," Sci-Fi declared, his voice trembling with barely contained rage. "The humans have shown us their true face. We must condemn their actions and demand accountability from their leaders." The council erupted into a heated debate, with some members calling for immediate retaliatory strikes against Earth. Others urged caution, warning that a rush to judgment could plunge the galaxy into an even more devastating conflict. Amidst the chaos, a Ktarian aide approached Sci-Fi and whispered urgently in his ear. The aide informed him that Bobby Taylor was requesting a private audience. Sci-Fi was initially reluctant, but his curiosity got the better of him. He agreed to meet with the human commander, wondering what new revelations he might bring. In a small, heavily guarded room, Sci-Fi came face to face with Bobby once more. The human looked haggard and tired, but there was a glint of persistence in his eyes. "I know you have no reason to trust me," Bobby began, his voice low and intense. "But there's more to this war than you realize. Not all humans support what our leaders have done. There are those of us who want to end this conflict and forge a new path forward." Sci-Fi listened skeptically as Bobby outlined his proposal. The human spoke of a faction within Earth's military that sought to overthrow the current regime and establish a new government committed to peace and cooperation with the Tarians. "What you're suggesting is treason," Sire-Father said, narrowing his eyes. "Why should I believe that you're any different from the monsters who gave you your orders?" "Because I'm here, aren't I?" Bobby replied, leaning forward. "I could have stayed silent, but I chose to speak out. I'm willing to risk everything to make this right." As Bobby laid out the details of his plan, Sire-Father found himself intrigued despite his initial reservations. The human was proposing a daring covert operation to remove Earth's warmongering leaders from power, with the support and assistance of the Tarian Alliance. "I can give you intelligence, access codes, everything you need to make this work," Bobby promised. "But I need your help. I can't do this alone." Sire-Father weighed the risks and potential rewards in his mind. If Bobby was telling the truth, this could be their best chance to end the war and hold Earth accountable for its crimes. But if it was a trap, the consequences could be catastrophic. "I will discuss your proposal with the Council," Sire-Father said finally, his voice heavy with the weight of the decision before him. "But understand this, any deal we make will be contingent on the success of your operation and your full cooperation. If you betray us, there will be no mercy." Bobby nodded solemnly, his face etched with drive. "I understand. I won't let you down." As the guards led Bobby back to his cell, Sire-Father felt a mix of hope and trepidation churning inside him. The path ahead was uncertain and fraught with danger, but the chance to bring an end to the war and forge a new future for the galaxy was too important to ignore. He knew that convincing the Council to support this risky venture would be a formidable challenge, but Sire-Father was determined to see it through. The fate of the Tarian race and the entire interstellar community hung in the balance. Sire-Father stood at the head of the Tarian High Council chamber, his 4 eyes scanning the faces of the assembled delegates. The tension in the room was palpable as he began to speak. "Esteemed colleagues, we face a pivotal decision. The human Bobby Taylor has proposed a covert operation to overthrow Earth's leadership. We must decide whether to support this plan." The chamber erupted into chaos. Counselor Zix, a battle-scarred veteran, thumped his hand on the table. "This is madness. We cannot trust the word of a human butcher." "But the evidence he provided," countered Counselor Vreen, her voice barely audible above the din. "The encrypted transmissions, the military orders, we cannot ignore them." Back and forth the arguments flew. Sire-Father listened, his face impassive. After hours of heated debate, he called for a vote. The council chamber fell silent as the votes were tallied. "By a narrow margin, we will conditionally support Taylor's plan," Sire-Father announced, "but he must prove himself first." The council devised a trial mission: infiltrate an Earth military installation and steal classified documents. It was a high-stakes gambit, but one that could expose further Earth war crimes and validate Taylor's claims. In a secure holding cell, Bobby received the news. A guard handed him a communication device. "Make your calls, human. Your life depends on it." Bobby's fingers flew over the device, sending encrypted messages to his trusted allies. Within hours, responses trickled in. His old friend Jack Simmons was among the first to reply. "I'm in. Let's finish this." As Bobby and Jack pored over schematics of the target installation, Qatarian intel officers briefed them on the facility's defenses. "The outer perimeter is guarded by automated turrets," one officer explained. "You'll need to disable them remotely before approaching." Bobby nodded, committing every detail to memory. The stakes were clear. Failure meant death and the end of any hope for peace. On the night before the mission, Bobby's comm device buzzed. A message from Sire-Father. "Good luck. The fate of our peoples rests on your success." Attached was a data package, leverage to use if they succeeded. The team assembled in the pre-dawn darkness. Bobby looked at the faces of his comrades, human and Qatarian alike. No words were needed. They all understood the gravity of their task. They approached the Earth installation under cover of night. Jack disabled the perimeter defenses with a few taps on his wrist computer. They were in. Moving swiftly through corridors, they encountered the first wave of guards. Silenced weapons cracked and bodies fell, but the element of surprise wouldn't last long. As they neared the central data vault, alarms blared. Bobby cursed. "We've been made. Jack, get that vault open now." Bullets whizzed past as Jack worked feverishly to hack the vault's security. The rest of the team returned fire, buying precious seconds. The vault door slid open. Just as a fresh wave of guards poured in, Bobby made a split-second decision. "Jack, take the team and the data. Get out of here. I'll hold them off." "Bobby, no. We came together. We leave together." Bobby gripped his friend's shoulder. "The mission comes first. Now go!" With a final nod, Jack led the team out. Bobby turned to face the oncoming forces, weapon raised. He knew his chances were slim, but as long as the data made it out, there was still hope. For Earth, for the Tarians, for the entire galaxy. The guards advanced and Bobby opened fire. The Katarian High Council chamber buzzed with frantic energy as Sire Father called the emergency session to order. The news of Bobby Taylor's sacrifice and the mission's failure hung heavy in the air. "We've been betrayed," Sire Father announced, his four eyes narrowing, "and the traitor walks among us." Murmurs rippled through the gathered officials. Sire Father nodded to a guard who activated a holographic display. Encrypted communications flashed across the screen, undeniable proof of treachery. "Vizier Trock," Sire Father's voice cut through the din. "Step forward." The chamber fell silent as Trock, a high-ranking Katarian official, approached the council dais. His antennae twitched nervously. "Explain these transmissions," Sire Father demanded. Trock's eyes darted around the room. I can explain," he stammered. But he couldn't. Under intense questioning, Trock's tenacity crumbled. He confessed to leaking intel to Earth, revealing how human agents had threatened his family. The council erupted in outrage. "Strip him of rank," one member shouted. "Execution," cried another. Sire Father raised a hand for silence. "Vizier Trock, you are hereby stripped of your position and will face a war crimes tribunal." As guards led Trock away, Sire Father turned to his most trusted advisors. "This goes deeper than one traitor. We must root out all Earth's influence." Over the next days, Katarian security forces swept through government offices. They arrested compromised officials, seized data crystals, and uncovered a vast network of Earth collaborators. Amidst the chaos, a battered Earth shuttle docked at the Tyrian capital. Jack Simmons and the survivors of Bobby's team stumbled out, clutching the stolen data. "We have what you need," Jack said, handing over the intel. "And a message from Bobby." Jack played Bobby's final transmission. "Don't give up. Earth's regime must fall. The fate of the stars depends on it." Sire Father's drive hardened. He committed more resources to the resistance and opened secret communications with other alien worlds. As the extent of Earth's galactic influence became clear, Sire Father knew decisive action was needed. He ordered a public execution of the captured human agents, broadcasting it across known space. "Let this serve as a warning," Sire Father declared. "The Katarians and our allies will not be cowed. We fight for justice and peace." With internal threats neutralized, Sire Father met with Jack and his team. They pored over maps of Earth's capital, planning their next move. "We'll provide you with our most advanced weaponry," Sire Father said. "This mission must succeed." Jack nodded grimly. "For Bobby, for everyone Earth has hurt." As they finalized the infiltration plan, the weight of their task settled on Jack's shoulders. The fate of worlds hung in the balance. Failure wasn't an option. Jack Simmons crouched behind a crumbling wall, his pulse pounding in his ears. The acrid smell of burning debris filled his nostrils as he peered around the corner. Earth's capital lay in ruins, smoke billowing from shattered buildings. In the distance, the imposing silhouette of the command nexus loomed against the blood-red sky. "Team, report in," Jack whispered into his comm unit. "Alpha in position," came the response, followed quickly by, "Bravo, ready." Jack nodded to himself. Execute on my mark. He held up 3 fingers, counting down silently. As his last finger dropped, a brilliant flash lit up the sky. Katarian orbital strikes rained down on pre-designated targets, creating chaos and confusion among the loyalist forces. Move! Jack shouted, sprinting from cover. His team surged forward, alien weaponry humming with deadly energy. They navigated through the war-torn streets, dodging debris and engaging pockets of resistance. The distinctive crack of Earth rifles mixed with the high-pitched whine of Tarian energy weapons. As they neared the outer perimeter of the command nexus, a hail of bullets forced them into cover. Jack's longtime friend Hank Miller rose to return fire, his bulky demo pack weighing him down. "Hank, get down!" Jack yelled, but it was too late. A bullet caught Hank in the shoulder, spinning him around. He crashed to the ground, blood pooling beneath him. "Man down," someone shouted. Jack crawled to his friend's side. Hank's face was pale, his breathing labored. "Leave me," Hank gasped. "Complete the mission." Jack gritted his teeth, torn between his duty and his friend. With a heavy heart, he made his choice. "We'll be back for you, I promise." Leaving Hank in as secure a position as possible, Jack rallied his team. They pushed forward, their advance covered by well-timed Katarian strikes. The outer defenses of the command nexus crumbled under the combined assault. As they breached the perimeter, Jack's team found themselves in close-quarters combat with Earth's elite guards. The narrow corridors echoed with the sounds of struggle and the cries of the wounded. Jack ducked under a wild swing, bringing the butt of his rifle up into his attacker's chin. The guard crumpled unconscious. "This way," Jack called out, spotting a maintenance hatch. He led a small squad through the cramped tunnel, emerging deep within the heart of the facility. Alarms blared, red emergency lights bathing everything in an eerie glow. The pounding of boots signaled the approach of security forces. "We need to reach the Central Command Center," Jack said, checking his weapon. "It's now or never." They fought their way through the corridors, each meter gained paid for in blood and sweat. As they neared their objective, a towering figure stepped into their path. General Harlan, the infamous leader of Earth's military, stood before them. "You dare challenge us?" Harlan growled, his scarred face twisted in rage. Without warning, he lunged at Jack. The 2 men grappled fiercely, crashing into walls and equipment. Jack felt a rib crack under Harlan's massive fist, but he fought through the pain. With a desperate surge of strength, he managed to flip Harlan over his shoulder. The general's head struck the corner of a console with a sickening crack. Harlan lay still, blood seeping from a gash on his temple. He groaned weakly, no longer a threat. Panting heavily, Jack turned to his team. "Secure the command center. This ends now." They burst into the central chamber, weapons trained on the cowering members of Earth's ruling council. Documents and data crystals lay scattered across the floor, evidence of a hasty attempt to destroy incriminating information. "It's over," Jack declared, his voice filled with cold fury. "Surrender now." The council members looked at each other, their faces pale with fear. Slowly, one by one, they raised their hands in defeat. As Jack secured the prisoners, he couldn't help but think of Bobby, of Hank, and of all those who had sacrificed so much to reach this moment. The war was a long way to go, but a crucial battle had been won. Earth's reign of terror was at an end, and a new chapter in human history was about to begin. Jack stood at the window of the provisional government's headquarters, his eyes scanning the ruined skyline of what was once Earth's capital. The acrid smell of smoke and debris still lingered in the air, a constant reminder of the brutal conflict that had engulfed their world. A knock on the door pulled Jack from his thoughts. "Come in," he called out, turning to face the entrance. Lieutenant Sarah Chen, one of Jack's most trusted advisors, entered the room. Her uniform was wrinkled and dark circles rimmed her eyes, evidence of the long hours they'd all been working. "Sir, we've got a situation," Sarah said, her voice tight with tension. "General Markham's forces are mobilizing. Intel suggests they're planning to hit us hard and fast." Jack's expression resolute. He'd known this was coming, but the reality of it still hit him like a punch to the gut. "What's their target?" Sarah spread a map across Jack's desk, pointing to several key locations. They're focusing on government buildings and communications hubs. If they succeed, they could cripple our ability to coordinate a response. Jack leaned over the map, studying the marked locations. We can't let that happen. Get our people in position. I want every available unit ready to repel this attack. As Sarah hurried out to relay the orders, Jack felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. He thought of Bobby, of his sacrifice, and felt a renewed surge of tenacity. The next few hours were a blur of activity. Jack moved between command centers, coordinating with Qatarian allies and rallying Earth's loyalist forces. The sound of distant explosions grew closer as Markham's troops advanced. In the heat of battle, Jack found himself pinned down with a small squad of resistance fighters. Bullets whizzed overhead as they took cover behind the twisted wreckage of a fallen building. "We're outnumbered," shouted Corporal Rodriguez over the din of gunfire. "What do we do, sir?" Jack was about to respond when his comm unit crackled to life. A familiar voice, weak but unmistakable, came through the static. "Jack, it's Bobby. I'm alive." Jack's heart leapt into his throat. "Bobby? How? Where are you?" "No time to explain." Bobby's voice was urgent. "Listen carefully. Markham's command bunker isn't where you think it is. I've got the real coordinates, and I know how to get inside." As Bobby relayed the critical information, Jack's mind raced. This could change everything. He quickly assembled a strike team, briefing them on Bobby's intel. "This is our chance to end this," Jack told the team. "We go in fast, we go in hard, and we take Markham out of the equation." Under the cover of night, Jack led the strike team through a maze of underground tunnels, following Bobby's directions. They emerged in a service corridor deep within Markham's hidden bunker. "Guards ahead," whispered Jack, signaling the team to halt. He peered around the corner, counting the enemy soldiers. With practiced precision, the strike team neutralized the guards and pushed deeper into the facility. Alarms blared as they fought their way through, but Bobby's intel proved invaluable, allowing them to bypass the heaviest security. Finally, they reached the command center. Jack kicked down the door, weapon at the ready. Inside, General Markham and his top commanders looked up in shock. "It's over, Markham," Jack declared, his voice cold and hard. "Surrender now." Markham's face contorted with rage, but as he looked around at the guns trained on him and his officers, the fight seemed to drain out of him. Slowly, he raised his hands in surrender. As Jack's team secured the prisoners, he couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. They'd won this battle, but he knew the war was nowhere near the end. Something told him that Markham's defeat was just the beginning of a much larger struggle. Jack tapped his comm unit. "Control, this is Simmons. We've got Markham. I repeat, we've got Markham." He paused, then added, "And tell our Qatarian allies, we're going to need their help cleaning up this mess." As Jack led the captured officers out of the bunker, his mind turned to Bobby. His friend was alive, and Jack swore he'd move heaven and earth to bring him home. But for now, there was work to be done. The real fight, he sensed, was just beginning. Jack Simmons stood before the holographic display, his eyes scanning the ruined landscape of Earth's former capital. The scars of war ran deep, buildings reduced to rubble, and streets cratered by orbital strikes. He swiped his hand, bringing up images of similar devastation across the planet. "We can't rebuild alone," Jack said, turning to face the assembled members of Earth's provisional government. A balding man in a rumpled suit stood up, his face flushed with anger. "So, we just roll over and let the Tarians take control, after everything they've done?" Jack shook his head. "No, Senator. We work together, as equals." The room erupted in heated debate. Jack let it wash over him, his mind drifting to the countless lives lost in the conflict. A gentle chime from his comm unit pulled him back to the present. "Simmons here," he answered, stepping away from the arguing officials. "Jack, it's Sire Father." The familiar voice of the Tarian leader crackled through the device. "I have a proposal, one that could change everything." Hours later, Jack found himself aboard a Tarian shuttle, descending towards a gleaming city that seemed to float among the clouds. As he disembarked, Sire-Father greeted him with a formal bow. "Welcome to New Kataria, Jack Simmons," Sire-Father said, gesturing to the surrounding splendor. "What do you see?" Jack took in the towering spires and bustling streets where Katarians of all castes mingled freely. "I see hope," he replied, "a future we could build together." Sire-Father nodded, leading Jack to a private chamber. Inside, a holographic display flickered to life, showing a distant star system. "This," Sire-Father explained, "is where we forge our new beginning. A joint colony, humans and Katarians working side by side." Jack studied the image, his mind racing with possibilities. "It won't be easy," he said. "There's still a lot of bad blood on both sides." "Indeed," Sire-Father agreed, "but nothing worth doing ever is." Weeks passed in a flurry of negotiations and planning. Finally, the day arrived for the first wave of colonists to depart. Jack stood on the launch platform, watching as humans and Katarians filed into the massive colony ship. A commotion near the gangway caught his attention. A human worker shoved a Katarian, shouting, "Watch where you're going, you overgrown lizard!" Jack moved quickly, stepping between the two. "That's enough," he said firmly. "We're all in this together now." The human worker glared but backed down. Jack sighed, knowing this was just the first of many challenges they'd face. As the colony ship lifted off, Jack felt a mix of hope and trepidation. He turned to find Sire-Father at his side. "And so it begins," the Katarian leader said. Jack nodded. "Let's hope we're not making a terrible mistake." Months later, Jack stood on the surface of their new home, a resource-rich moon orbiting a gas giant. The air was thin but breathable, the gravity just slightly less than Earth normal. All around him, the skeletal frames of new buildings rose from the rocky ground. A group of human and Katarian workers struggled to align a massive support beam. Jack watched as tempers flared, the two species shouting at each other in a cacophony of languages. He strode forward, grabbing one end of the beam. "Like this," he demonstrated, showing them how to work together to maneuver the unwieldy object into place. Slowly, grudgingly, the workers followed his lead. As the beam slotted into place with a satisfying clunk, Jack allowed himself a small smile. It was progress, however small. That night, as Jack reviewed construction reports in his prefab quarters, an explosion rocked the fledgling colony. He raced outside to find chaos. A plume of smoke rose from the newly completed power plant, flames licking at the night sky. "Sabotage," Sire-Father growled, appearing at Jack's side. This was no accident. Jack's fists tight as he surveyed the damage. They'd known there would be resistance, but this... "We need to find who's responsible," Jack said, "before they tear everything we've built apart." As emergency teams battled the blaze, Jack and Sire-Father convened an emergency meeting. They pored over security logs and witness statements, searching for any clue that might lead them to the saboteurs. A young Katarian analyst burst into the room, her scales flushed with excitement. "Sirs, we found something. A hidden transmission sent just before the explosion." Jack leaned in, studying the decrypted message. His blood ran cold as he recognized a familiar code phrase. "Cerberus," he muttered. "They're here." Sire-Father's eyes narrowed. "Not just them. Look at the encryption key. It bears the hallmarks of our military's top-secret protocols." Jack met Sire-Father's gaze, the gravity of the situation sinking in. They weren't just facing external threats, but traitors within their own ranks. "We need to move fast," Jack said, already formulating a plan, "before they can strike again." As they rushed to mobilize their forces, Jack couldn't help but wonder, how deep did this conspiracy run? And could their fragile alliance survive the storm that was coming? The emergency klaxon blared through the colony's command center, its piercing wail cutting through the tense atmosphere. Jack Simmons burst into the room, his eyes scanning the holographic displays that dominated the far wall. "What's the situation?" he demanded, addressing the cluster of human and Katarian scientists hunched over consoles. A young Tarian researcher looked up, her scales pale with stress. "Sir, Long-range scanners have detected a massive object on a collision course with the colony. Initial data suggests it's an asteroid, but there's something unusual about it. Jack leaned in, studying the readouts. The asteroid's trajectory was erratic, defying standard gravitational models. Its composition readings were off the charts, unlike anything they'd encountered before. Sirefather entered the room, his normally calm demeanor replaced by a sense of urgency. "Jack, we need to act fast. This object, whatever it is, will impact the colony in less than 72 hours. The next few hours were a blur of frantic calculations and desperate planning. Jack watched as the colony's brightest minds argued and theorized, searching for a solution. Finally, a consensus emerged. "The asteroid's core contains an energy source of immense power," explained Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the colony's chief physicist. "If we can access it, we might be able to alter its course, but it would require a team to land on the surface and infiltrate its systems directly." Jack nodded, his heart made. "I'll lead the mission." Sirefather stepped forward. "You'll need our best. Lieutenant Zara will accompany you." As the team prepared for departure, Jack couldn't shake a nagging sense of unease. The asteroid's behavior was too precise, too targeted. In the shuttle bay, he pulled aside one of the Tarian techs. "Run another deep scan," he ordered. "Look for any signs of artificial manipulation." The tech's eyes widened as the results came in. "Sir, there are faint energy signatures. They could be artificial in nature." Jack absorbed this information, his mind racing. Whatever they were dealing with, it was far more than a simple asteroid. Hours later, Jack's team approached the massive object. Up close, its surface was a maze of jagged peaks and deep crevasses, all shrouded in a shimmering energy field. "Brace for landing," Jack called out as their shuttle touched down on a relatively flat expanse. The moment they stepped onto the asteroid's surface, Jack felt the hostility of the environment. The temperature fluctuated wildly, and strange energy pulses made his skin tingle uncomfortably. Ahead, he spotted a dark opening in the rocky face. "There," he pointed, "that's our way in." As they ventured deeper into the asteroid's core, the alien nature of their surroundings became increasingly apparent. Smooth, metallic corridors replaced rough stone, and strange symbols adorned the walls. "This is no natural formation," Lieutenant Zara observed, her voice filled with awe and trepidation. Suddenly, a high-pitched whine filled the air. Jack spun around to see a swarm of sleek metallic drones descending upon them. "Take cover!" he shouted, diving behind a jutting piece of alien technology. The air filled with the sound of energy weapons as Jack and his team fought back against the relentless assault. In the chaos, Jack found himself separated from the main group, with only Lieutenant Zara at his side. "We need to push forward," Zara yelled over the din of battle. "Find the control center." Fighting their way through waves of drones, Jack and Zara pressed deeper into the asteroid's core. Finally, they stumbled into a vast chamber dominated by a pulsing, crystalline structure. As Jack approached, the air around him seemed to vibrate with energy. A disembodied voice, neither male nor female, human nor Qatarian, echoed through his mind. "Intruders detected. Initiating eradication protocols." Jack's blood ran cold as he realized the truth. This wasn't just a weapon, it was a sentient being, programmed to destroy anything it perceived as a threat. "We need to reason with it," Jack said, turning to Zara, "or find a way to override its systems." Zara nodded grimly. "Whatever we do, we need to do it fast. The colony doesn't have much time." Jack stepped forward, addressing the AI directly. "We're not a threat. We're seeking peaceful coexistence. Please divert your course." The AI's response was immediate and chilling. "Request denied. Threat assessment unchanged. Continuing primary directive." With no other option, Jack and Zara sprang into action. They worked furiously to interface with the alien technology, attempting to rewrite the AI's core directives. As they made progress, alarms began to blare throughout the structure. The AI's voice boomed around them. "Critical systems compromised. Initiating self-destruct sequence." "We need to get out of here," Zara shouted, pulling Jack away from the console. They ran through the crumbling corridors, dodging falling debris and malfunctioning drones. They barely made it to their shuttle, blasting off as the asteroid began to break apart behind them. From the safety of space, they watched as the ancient weapon detonated in a blinding flash of energy. The shockwave rocked their small craft, and Jack's heart sank as he realized the danger wasn't over. "The colony," he said, his voice heavy. "We need to warn them. That energy wave, it's heading straight for us." The shockwave slammed into the colony with devastating force. Alarms blared as buildings shuddered and cracked. Jack gripped the shuttle's controls, fighting to keep it steady as they raced back to the surface. "We need to evacuate," Zara shouted over the din. "No," Jack said, his lips pursed. "We stand our ground." They touched down amid chaos. Colonists ran for shelter as debris rained from the sky. Jack sprinted to the command center, Zara at his heels. Inside, Sirefather stood before a holographic display, barking orders. He turned as Jack entered. "Report." "The weapon's destroyed, but the fallout—" Jack shook his head. "We're vulnerable." A technician called out, "Sir, long-range scanners detecting multiple anomalies." Jack leaned in, studying the readouts. His blood ran cold. Wormholes, dozens of them, all over the system. "Incoming!" another tech shouted. The display lit up with new contacts, sleek, predatory ships pouring through the wormholes. "Raiders!" Sirefather hissed. "They're striking while we're weak." Jack watched as the alien ships swarmed their outlying facilities. Mining outposts went dark, one by one. "We need a plan," Jack said, turning to Sirefather. "Fast." They huddled over tactical displays, discussing options in rapid-fire exchanges. Finally, Jack straightened. "We go through," he said. "Hit them at the source." Sirefather nodded grimly. "A bold move, but how?" Jack tapped the display, zooming in on salvaged tech from the asteroid. "We use this. Upgrade our weapons, our armor. Then we take the fight to them." Hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. Jack oversaw the modifications himself, working alongside human and Qatarian engineers. As he calibrated a plasma rifle, a comm officer burst in. "Sir, incoming transmission. You need to see this." Jack followed him to a secure terminal. His eyes widened as a familiar face appeared on screen. "Bobby," he breathed, "but how?" Bobby Taylor, looking haggard but very much alive, spoke quickly. "No time to explain. Jack, listen carefully. The Raiders have a base, heavily fortified. I'm sending coordinates now." Data streamed across the screen. Jack absorbed it, his mind racing. "There's more," Bobby continued. "They have a weapon, some kind of mind control device. You have to stop them, Jack, before it's too late." The transmission cut out. Jack stood there, processing the implications. Zara approached, concern etched on her scaled features. "Orders, sir?" Jack squared his shoulders. "Gather our best. We're going in." They assembled in the hangar bay, a mix of hardened human soldiers and Qatarian warriors. Jack addressed them, his voice steady. "What we're about to do is nothing short of insane, but it's our only shot. Any of you want out, now's the time." No one moved. Jack nodded. "Let's go save our home." They piled into the modified shuttles. Jack took the lead, Zara at his side. As they approached the swirling maw of the nearest wormhole, he keyed the comm. "All units, prepare for transit, and whatever's on the other side, hit it hard." The wormhole engulfed them in a maelstrom of light and energy. When they emerged, chaos erupted. Alien warships swarmed around them, weapons blazing. Jack's hands flew over the controls, jinking and weaving through the barrage. "Evasive maneuvers," he shouted. "Push through to the planet." Their upgraded shields held, barely. Jack watched grimly as several of their shuttles exploded in balls of fire. They punched through the blockade, plummeting towards the alien world below. As they screamed through the atmosphere, Jack caught glimpses of vast cities and sprawling industrial complexes. "There!" Zara called out, pointing to a massive structure dominating the horizon. The command center! Jack nodded, setting their course. All units, form up. We hit them hard and fast. For Earth, for Kataria, for our future. The shuttles touched down under heavy fire. Jack leapt out, plasma rifle at the ready, and charged into the fray. The acrid smell of burning metal and ozone filled Jack's nostrils as he emerged from the command bunker. Smoke billowed from nearby buildings, testament to the fierce battle that had raged through the colony's streets. He surveyed the destruction, his heart heavy with the cost of their victory. A Katarian soldier approached, her scales dulled with dust and grime. "Sir, we've secured the perimeter. No sign of further resistance." Jack nodded. "Good work. Keep your teams on high alert. We can't afford any surprises." As he made his way through the war-torn capital, Jack's comm unit crackled to life. "Jack, it's Bobby. You need to see this." Minutes later, Jack stood in a makeshift operations center, staring at a holo display filled with encrypted communications. Bobby Taylor, looking haggard but determined, pointed to a series of data points. "We found this in the Raiders' central database. It's a goldmine of intel, but—" Bobby hesitated, his voice dropping. "There's something you need to know." As Bobby explained the shocking revelation of Tarian betrayal, Jack felt the ground shift beneath his feet. The implications were staggering. "We need to inform Sirefather immediately," Jack said, his mind racing. The emergency council session was tense, the air thick with suspicion and barely contained anger. Vizier Krell, the accused Katarian official, stood before them, his posture rigid with defiance. "These accusations are preposterous," Krell snarled, his tail lashing back and forth. "Clearly this is human fabrication meant to drive a wedge between our peoples." Jack stepped forward, his voice steady. "The evidence speaks for itself, Vizier. We have corroborating data from multiple sources." Before Krell could respond, alarms blared throughout the chamber. A junior officer burst in, panic etched on his face. "We're under attack. Rebel forces have breached the outer defenses." Chaos erupted as Krell's loyalists sprang into action. Energy weapons fire lit up the room, forcing Jack and his allies to dive for cover. Jack pulled Sirefather down behind an overturned table as plasma bolts sizzled overhead. "We need to get you to safety," Jack shouted over the din of battle. Sirefather's eyes blazed with fury. "No, I will not abandon my people to these traitors." As they fought their way out of the council chambers, Jack saw Bobby Taylor sprinting towards the rebel lines. "Bobby, what are you doing?" "Buying us time," Bobby called back. "Get Sirefather to the command center." Jack watched in horror as Bobby raised his hands in surrender, allowing himself to be taken by Krell's forces. The rebel advance halted momentarily, giving Jack and Sirefather the opening they needed to escape. In the command center, Sirefather paced furiously. "We cannot let this rebellion stand. Prepare for orbital bombardment." Jack grabbed Sirefather's arm. "Wait, the collateral damage would be catastrophic. We need another way." A comm officer interrupted. "Sir, incoming transmission from the rebels." Krell's face appeared on the main screen, his scales flushed with triumph. "Surrender now, Sirefather, or watch your precious colony burn." Jack's mind raced, formulating a plan. He turned to his most trusted operatives. "We're going in. Surgical strike to extract Bobby and neutralize Krell." The streets of the colony had become a war zone. Jack and his team moved swiftly through the rubble, engaging rebel forces in short, brutal firefights. They pushed relentlessly towards the rebel stronghold where Bobby was being held. "There," Jack pointed to a heavily guarded building. "That's where they're keeping him." They launched their assault, catching the rebels off guard. Jack's enhanced plasma rifle tore through their defenses, clearing a path to the inner chambers. They found Bobby moments before his planned execution. As Jack cut through his restraints, Bobby grinned weakly. "Took you long enough." With Bobby secured, they turned their attention to Krell's command bunker. The final assault was fierce, rebel forces throwing everything they had at Jack's team. In the chaos of close-quarters combat, Jack saw Bobby take a direct hit from an energy weapon. "No!" Jack screamed, catching his friend as he fell. Bobby coughed, blood speckling his lips. "Finish it, Jack. Don't let this all be for nothing." With a roar of anguish and rage, Jack led the final push. They breached Krell's inner sanctum, subduing the traitorous vizier and his top lieutenants in a hail of stun blasts. As the dust settled, Jack returned to Bobby's side. His friend's breathing was shallow, his skin pale. "Jack," Bobby whispered, his voice barely audible, "promise me you'll see this through. Peace. It's worth fighting for." Jack clasped Bobby's hand tightly. "I promise. We'll build something that'll make you proud." Bobby's eyes closed, a faint smile on his lips as he breathed his last. In the days that followed, Jack worked tirelessly alongside Sirefather to stabilize the colony. They rooted out the remaining separatists, held trials for Krell and his co-conspirators, and began the long process of rebuilding trust between humans and Caterians. At Bobby's memorial service, Jack stood before a sea of faces, human and Caterian alike. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the words he needed to say.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.